Hi everyone. Hi Karen, Magda, and
Hello.
welcome to today's colloquium webinar. I'm quite excited today actually to introduce a fellow South African as a speaker. So welcome, Karen Dialga. I got it right?
Thank you. No worries.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to engaging with you. And you and I have chatted quite a bit about your topic in the past few days, before the webinar. All sounds quite cool and interesting. And I'm really loving that you're going to add a bit of conversational intelligence into the topic of neurochemistry and communication, especially around leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we all can take that away and link it or use it or see the value of it in working with ourselves and our clients and the people we engage with.
Yeah.
So most importantly, just welcome to the call and looking forward to spending the next hour with you and our participants.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. It's such a privilege to be invited to speak on a platform like this about something that I feel so passionate about. I think it's something that we can all learn from, and especially if we look at the way people communicate with each other. It can go so wrong, and it's lack of information, lack of knowledge. We don't really know how. So I'm looking forward to spend a little bit of time with you just to share a bit of information.
And of course, sometimes we have the best intentions and don't communicate it in that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely, we don't. Yeah.
So to our participants, our today's session would go, Karen's going to engage with you in a presentation and a discussion. She's prepared a few slides, and more importantly, she'll engage with you in discussion or pick up discussion points. We'll stop after about 20 minutes for Q&As. In the meantime, please go ahead and use the chat box as you see fit. Raise questions and discussion points, and I will pass them over to Karen. Also, when we stop for discussion, if you want to join the panel, do raise your hand, and Magda will bring you up to the panel so you can ask Karen your questions or you have a discussion with her.
Okay.
So I'm going to hand over to Karen, who will introduce herself and introduce the topic for you, and then engage with you in the rest of our content for about 20 minutes until we stop for discussion. Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, a little bit about me. I've been working in the coaching industry for about 10 years and exclusively in the corporate environment. And I've always looked for ways of learning more about different aspects and the different things that happens in the corporate environment. And I've combined different methodologies. My training was in consciousness coaching. And then I subsequently did a course in conversational intelligence with Judith Glaser and did some research and things. And I realized the value of understanding what happens in our brains. And that's what the topic is all about for today. But before I start, I want to create some context. I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for spending this hour with us to make sure that you use as much information to enhance your own coaching ability, your own coaching style. You can never learn too much. So I always come from the perspective that I'm a student forever. And I always look for new opportunities to learn. And I want to create that context for you also for tonight, is to really come from the perspective of let's learn together. Let's not come from we know it all. I'm merely going to share what I know, and by no means am I an expert. I'm just sharing what I've learned from the different sources. And then after the Q&A And in summary, I would love for you to just think about what your greatest value was that you're taking away from here. So, and also to create the context for yourself for the best learning possible, the best learning opportunity. So you will know what that is, so that you can walk away with something valuable for today. So if we're ready, I think what I can do is I can kick off by starting with a slideshow that I've prepared. I'm going to just share my screen with you so that I can make sure that we can all participate together. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me just see.
Okay, coming on now. There we go.
Okay. So I'm just going to move us away a little bit. Okay. So the topic is understanding neurochemistry on a conversational intelligence level for leadership development. Okay, big words, but in essence, it's how do we communicate to get the best possible value in the workplace and in general. So I think the things that can really hamper communication in the workplace is the way people communicate. So we pick up challenges in the workplace because we don't communicate clearly. Either we do not share enough information, we leave room open for interpretation without clarity, lots of assumptions are being made, and then sometimes when leaders communicate with staff members, they come from a hidden agenda, or maybe ego drives the conversation, or maybe they're stuck in a position and or they're afraid of something, and then the communication is not clear and transparent. Judith Glaser sums it up, and she says, and I'm going to read to you, to get to the next level of greatness depends on the quality of the culture, which depends on the quality of the relationships, which depends on the quality of the conversations. So for me, that says it all. You know, you can have the best strategy, the best people on board, but you still have to have people to deliver on the strategy. Now, if you do not communicate properly with those people, and if you don't build and nurture those relationships, then your strategy won't even have a chance to survive, okay? So that's why we're focusing on communication. I'm sure we can add a lot of words to this slide. You know, there's always, when we don't communicate properly, when we go into our heads and we're trying to figure out what's going on, we lose presence. So we also don't listen to connect. You know, the connection is broken when we try and figure out what the other person is trying to say. We also defend ourselves if we feel that we put on the spot. So all sorts of things can go wrong when there's no communication. The next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the brain. So there's in fact 6 parts to our brains. There's always research going on all the time. You know, it never ever stops. And I so enjoy these different things that you can learn about the brain. I'm going to start unpacking by spending a bit of time on the primitive brain. So the primitive brain, it's also referred to as the reptilian brain. What's interesting about that is that we actually share that construct with predators. You know, that's that stalking, that fully alert space that we're in. And the sole function of the primitive brain is to look out for threats, just to make sure that you are safe, and survival lives in that space. And then also, if you think about the responses that can come from a space where you feel you are threatened. So remember, a threat could be physically, you could be physically threatened, or you could be psychologically threatened. Then that primitive brain would be in action to protect you. So when the primitive brain is in action, you would respond with fight, flight, freeze, or even appease. But also notice that when that primitive brain is active, there's very little that it can pay attention to in the creative space, because it's all about, I have to survive this, okay? The next brain I would like to go to is the heart brain. Now, it's the most basic part of the hardwiring of the brain. This is the space that enables us to connect to our whole brains and the systems, all of the functions of the brain that has to do with connection with people. When we feel that the connection is safe, we would move towards people in friendships or partnerships. When we feel that the connection is not safe, we'll move away from people. So your heart brain is also the thing that will, it will inform the rest of the brain what's going on. So if the interaction feels safe, your heart will beat more coherently. But when the interaction feels not safe, it will be like faster or more anxious, and then that will inform the rest of the brain. The limbic system, that is the place where the emotional system lives. All your emotional experiences live in that center. It's also what's stored there based on your information or your history will depend on how you would respond in certain situations emotionally, okay? The neocortex, this is hardwired for language. Patterns get stored there with regards to cognitive skills. It's also the place that stores information, memory of how to do certain things. That's what lives there. Then the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex, it's the newest brain. They also refer to it as the executive brain. So this is such an amazing space of the brain where you can think about new ideas, you can come up with new creativity, new solutions, new possibility. It's also the space where you partner with people. Bonding lives there. For instance, when a mother nurses a baby, that is the space where the bonding lives, is in that space, right? It would also help you to navigate your way through difficult situations. It gives you such a holistic access to your whole brain that it can actually navigate around difficult situations, how to make judgment calls, you know, what's the best option in this, what's the best solution to something. It helps you to partner with people, and you can move closer to people in that space, and you can actually come up with things that you never thought possible before if you've got access to that, right? Your gut brain. Now, this is so interesting. Gut brain is the link between your digestive system and as well as your brain. So it can inform the way you think. It can actually also it can influence your moods. It can influence your whole digestive system and the way that your whole body operates. The 90% of the serotonin that we have gets produced in the gut brain. Now you can understand when the gut is not healthy, the flora is not healthy there, we also have low levels of serotonin. Now serotonin is necessary for us to feel good about life. For people that's depressed or that's depleted on serotonin, they actually enhance it chemically to be able to restore the balance there. What we also know that stress is linked to the lack of biodiversity in the gut brain. So I'm going to move on just because we don't have much time to spend there. This slide tells you, I just want to get to this space. So you would wonder, why am I telling you all of these things about the brain, right? So this slide will explain a little bit more. So when we trapped in protecting ourselves, in other words, when the primitive brain is active, we come from a space of reaction. Now, reaction normally is also linked to low trust. It's a stuck position. There's low productivity because all I can think about, all my brain can think about is protecting myself. There's also judgment towards situations. I don't have access to that prefrontal cortex that can give me new ideas. Also in that space, people tend to avoid responsibility. They start blaming circumstances or protect themselves. Protecting themselves can take various forms. It could be dismissing others. It could be dictating. And then also in the reaction space, there's high cortisol. Now, cortisol, I'll tell you a little bit more about cortisol in the next slide. Then if we look at the prefrontal cortex, access to that, which is the space where we take action, and there's a high trust space. We also have the ability to partner with people, and we can co-create. It's an empowering space. We include people. We don't exclude people, because remember, we don't have to protect ourselves if we're in that space. We ask questions. We make sure that we bring value. That's a high space of oxytocin. And then in the middle, you'll see there's a wait and see space. Let me tell you about that when we unpack that. The wait and see space is a space where someone will be in a position where they won't take action. They will first look out for, am I validated? Am I valued in this interaction before I'll come to the party? If it feels safe, I will come to the party and I will partner with you and I'll go to a high trust zone. But if it doesn't feel safe, I will get stuck in the reactive space. So that reactive space would then be the primitive brain that's active, and there I would do one of the 4 things we mentioned, like fight, flight, freeze, or appease. Okay. Then cortisol. Let me talk to you about cortisol a little bit more. You will see the cortisol, we've already mentioned it, it has the responses of fight, flight, freeze, or appease when you're in a reactive space. You would also react to circumstances because it will be purely circumstantial. And then the way you would react would also be dependent on what you have in your limbic system as history. Your limbic system would also store the patterns and then link it up and say, in a situation like this, this is how I feel and I might react, okay? Cortisol, and I want to read this to you so that I get it right. It's a steroid hormone, and it's normally released in response to stress events or circumstances, and it's best known for its involvement in those 4 categories of fight, flight, freeze, or appease. It's also done at the expense of processes that are not required for immediate survival. So your immediate survival will take the core focus in the interaction, right? So it wouldn't pay much attention to the rest, but your immediate survival. And then you will only have access to those lower parts of your brain, right? It will be to just keep you alive, because your brain can in fact not distinguish between psychological survival and physical survival. It experiences it as a threat. So both feels threatening, okay? The oxytocin, in the other hand, it's a powerful hormone that acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain. It regulates social interaction and bonding, and it's often referred to as the love hormone. And it also underlies trust. So you can see on the other side, this is if that neurotransmitter is present, there would be success and partnership and teams. It's also an antidote for depression, right? So if you think about what I've shared with you now in a nutshell, and you think about communication, then I guess the best option for effective partnership would be to move someone from that lower trust space where they would be trapped in their primitive brain to the prefrontal cortex, where they would have the ability to partner and think about new ideas and things. Yeah? So I think our 20 minutes, Cindy, is pretty much up now.
Mute myself. Karen, do you want to take some questions now? and
Yeah.
engage in some discussion, and then
Okay.
we'll move on to the next slides. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't see many questions. We have a very
Okay.
quiet group today.
Okay.
Hmm. Does anybody want to join the panel and engage with Karen for a bit? We just have a request from Shanaz about sharing slides. There we
Okay.
go. We have somebody wanting to pop into the, oh, Sanjay asked this question. Can you please clarify the connect between the first two slides?
Let's see. Is it that slide and that slide?
Yeah, the first one is the factors that for communication in the workplace.
Yes.
The discussion topic is on the top of the slide.
Yeah. So what factors hamper communication in the workplace? Okay,
Yeah.
I have it right. Okay, so normally when so the reason why I explained the slide about the brain is when we're stuck in a position of fear, or we feel that we have to protect ourselves, when we feel dismissed or judged, we normally get into a low trust space, which is why this slide is here. And when we're in a low trust space, we would lose our presence in the conversation, because we would not be present. We would be going into our brain and thinking, how can I protect myself here? We would also not have the ability to listen, to connect, because remember, connection would only be available when you have access to the prefrontal cortex. Then you can fully connect. So connect on a level where you don't feel that you have to protect yourself. The way that I've heard leaders communicate, I mean, these are actual statements that I've heard over all the years. It's like when someone brings something to their manager, statements like, what were you thinking? You know? So immediately when a statement like that is made by a leader, it will put the person in a position of protecting themselves. They would not be able to think of new ideas. They would not be able to think of possibility or partnering, because it will all be about survival. But all these processes are unconscious, and immediately it would be the default mode, yeah, coming from that reactive space. So all of the things that's on this first slide is coming from reaction, right? Because if I'm in reactive space, I will be stuck. I will be inflexible. And I would judge the situation, right? I hope I clarified. I don't know, Sanjay, are you clear on what I'm trying to share here, or do you have more questions?
There's this one that, take this one. Can you share a personal example of moving someone from reaction to action?
Yeah. Let me think. I can share an example of one of my clients. This person that always spoke to the staff in a way where they didn't feel validated. So whatever they brought was dismissed or criticized or judged. So I was coaching this person, and we were coaching on, I'm not able to delegate, I'm drowning, I've got so much on my plate, there's no help nowhere, people don't come to the party. And I asked him one question. I said to him, what do you do when someone brings something that they have prepared for you? And he says, well, look, I mean, I take one look at it and I immediately start criticizing it. And I go like, what were you thinking? You know, this is so far off the mark. There's nothing worthwhile here. So I asked him, you know, if you speak to me in this way and I was your direct report, what would motivate me next time? to go the extra mile? Or what would motivate me to spend some time and prepare something for you if I don't feel safe around you? So slowly but surely, I showed him how the remarks that he made contributed to his lack of time and his lack of trust with the team and the lack of the ability to delegate to the team. So what we started doing is to typically reflect on the statements that he made and to turn them around. So instead of saying to someone, what were you thinking? It's to turn them around. It's to say, thank you for the time you've spent. I see that you've spent time doing this. However, I'm curious to know, what was your line of thinking? This is the place that we're going towards. What do you think you can change such that we get to this outcome? So in his communication, he was far more clear. He included people by appreciating people. The trust started building in the team. So he could mend those relationships and people were not afraid of him anymore, and he could start delegating with trust. He held the space for them so that they knew that they could make mistakes because it was creating opportunities to learn versus being dismissed and belittled and embarrassed, by their contributions. Cindy, I think you're on mute.
Thank you for sharing that, Karen.
Thank you.
Sandy's got a follow-up question, and he's asked, this is what his question is. Have I got this right? When we operate in a survival mode, does more cortisol get released?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So cortisol, I can tell you a little bit about cortisol. Cortisol is something that gets released in your body that's actually toxic for your body. It comes from the adrenal glands, and there's high testosterone and aggression that can actually be present in that communication. It also lives for 26 hours in your brain, in your body. And the cortisol takes away the quality of your sleep, takes away your livelihood. It impacts your gut flora so that you're not healthy anymore, and your digestive system can actually suffer from repeated episodes of high cortisol. So if someone lives in a high stress environment, cortisol could really, really make them ill.
I think this question is also related, or somewhat related, Karen. It's from Shanaz, and she said, please say more about the medulla hijack. I'm saying it right.
The amygdala hijack. Okay. Yeah. So what I've done, and maybe it's a good time to do this now, I've prepared this slide with some information where you can start, if you're interested in additional research. You'll see there's The Brain by Dr. David Eagleman. I enjoyed this series so much. It's 6 one-hour episodes. You can follow the links on YouTube, and he'll tell you more about the brain, how it functions, different parts of the brain, how we are the way that we are. So in that, listening to those watching those different YouTube videos, you'll see a lot there. Then there's also a link, Conversational Intelligence by Judith Glaser. He's got amazing work. There's also a book that you can download from Amazon that you can read, and it's all about communication in the workplace. I've also got another link for you that says, what is the importance of social connection? There's a scientist, his name is Matt Lieberman. He wrote a book on why it's so important for us to connect to others and how to get the maximum out of relationships. So that can also help you a lot. The amygdala, what could happen, and I also learned that from one of these YouTube videos from David Eagleman. what he says about amygdala is that it demands most of your brain centers and it leaves very little available. It depends on the intensity of the reactive space. So it could be, say for instance, someone's life is at stake. It could really be that that person would only think about saving themselves. And progressively it could, it would only make sure that you're alive, that your basic functions can work. So he says a lot about that. I'm sure there's lots more research available on the amygdala. And then when it is to such an intensity extent, you can, they call it an amygdala hijack. So the hijack is exactly what it says. It puts the rest of your brain in limbo, where you can't think about new ideas. And we find that often in the corporate environment, where people are so stuck in a position of fear that they might even, you know, have all the qualifications to do their jobs properly, but they don't perform on the level that they're appointed at. Now, if you work with HR people, they might say, you know, we made a mistake. We appointed this person and they're not performing. The first place to look is to see what is the environment like. If that person is in a high stress environment, they won't have access to those new ideas or even the qualification properly. They would protect themselves. Maybe they get vindicated in the environment. Maybe people exclude them. Maybe they're a newbie on the block and they get excluded. Even that can make a person not perform on the level that they really are able to, because of the way that they experience the interactions.
Sorry, I'm on mute again. Karen?
You're on mute. Okay.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here from Therese. It's Therese Bonadonna. Which is what we were talking about the other day when we chatted about this webinar. I'm thoroughly convinced a part of my brain is embedded somewhere in my gut, a big part of it. Teresa's question is, can you talk a bit more about the gut brain and the role of serotonin? And she goes on to say, it's thought to be a contributor to feeling, well-being, and happiness. Its fluctuation is such a major cause of depression. So a question is more, can you talk a bit more about the gut brain?
Yeah, so the gut brain, I can start off to say that when an interaction does not feel safe, you get that sinking feeling in your gut. So when you get that feeling, your heart will automatically beat faster and then it will go up with the rest of the brain. When the interaction feels safe, your gut will feel, you know, that butterfly feeling, yeah, everything is okay, everything is safe here. So that's the information that gets transmitted to the rest of the brain. So when you are exposed to high levels of cortisol all the time, your gut flora gets depleted. And because we say the serotonin, 90% of serotonin gets produced in the gut. Now, serotonin is the thing that makes you feel good about life, because with the serotonin, there's also dopamine, you know, the feel good. When you've exercised, there's also serotonin or oxytocin, dopamine, those things get, you know, you feel much better about life, right? So now when you're exposed to high levels of cortisol, day after day after day, your serotonin could be depleted, which would make you depressed. And also, it's an interesting fact, this, I mean, people laugh when I share this. What we've learned is that because you're then in a space of survival in your gut as well, your body cannot even do the basic things like burn calories. That's why people pick up belly weight, because all of that is stored there, and the functions, your digestive system won't work properly. You will not be able to digest your food properly. you will then get stuff like heartburn, all those things that's linked to healthy gut flora. It will influence your mood. It will influence the way you see life. It will influence the way you think. It will even influence your cognitive ability, your memory, all those things, because you need the serotonin and healthy gut to be able to function properly as a human being. I've also read the other day that the gut brain is such an intelligence that when you take it out, if you are able to take out the gut brain and take it out of the body, it would actually survive on its own. You know, it will carry on. So, wow. And not too long ago, did people pay attention to that in their research? So there's lots of articles that you can read about that as well.
So Karen, before we take any more questions, where are you in your slide presentation? Do you want to continue there?
Well, look, I basically said what I wanted to share with you. And then I thought, okay, so the last slide is more, you know, with some links to some stuff that I find valuable. There's lots more information, yeah, and books that you can read. I just thought I don't want to overwhelm you with too much, but these are things that's really valuable. So that's really the end of the slideshow, and this is just where you know, where you can get a hold of us and our website and stuff like that.
So, and the reason why I asked, because a few minutes ago you were talking about, you know, the effects and the impact of on the gut brain, on the gut, right?
Yeah.
So the question I wanted to ask you was the, you know, the flip side of that. And I know this is an area you're quite passionate about. So what are some of the options for the opposite, you know, a well gut, or what are some of your options around that, or what could we do?
Well, I think the first thing is to look at the stress points in your life. You know, when you can get to a space where you can reduce the stress, when you can start communicating with people on a partnership level, when you can include people in your life. You know, believe it or not, people actually do care a lot. Our first way is to exclude people. It's to really go and see, you know, what is in my environment that produces so much stress for me that I'm not healthy. Look at eating habits, because the way you eat, if you don't eat healthy food, your gut brain won't be healthy. It will impact all of the rest of your brain systems as well. And then to take time out, you know, time out to be quiet, to reflect, to meditate, to not, you know, people laugh when I say, don't be so quick at the draw. You don't have to respond in a snapshot. You know, you can take time, even if you feel you're triggered. You can say, well, look, I need to reflect on this before I respond. Could you give me like 5 minutes or so? That already takes the edge off. And then you can start reducing the stress slowly but surely. And there are some high stress environments, unfortunately, that we live in. But I think, you know, take time out to exercise, look at what you eat, look at what time you go to bed, look at what time you take out for yourself in a day. I mean, I can speak from experience. If I don't take time out for myself, I can't be the best coach for my clients either, you know? So when I focus, that internal focus helps me to reduce the stress and just feel like I also matter in my diary. And immediately, the rest of my body even feels better. You know, it feels more healthy. And then you can handle high stress situations without being in a position where you feel out of control.
There are some lovely questions here, but before I continue, let me open this discussion with this question to our participants. Does any one of you want to join the panel or come up and ask or engage with Karen yourself? Please raise your hand so Magda can bring you up. I don't know what the word you use here, upload you or get you into the panel.
Include, Cindy, include is the word.
Okay. I'll go with include. Come. Who wants to engage with Karen and perhaps discuss a point with her? I can see many of you are raising some really good, what sounds more like discussion points versus a question.
Karen, good evening. This is Raghuram from India.
Hello, Raghu. Good evening.
It's a fantastic session. Thanks a lot for such an enabling time. Actually, the question I had is what I recorded there. I do have a situation where a coachee perpetually sits on the wait and watch mode and invariably slips into the cortisol areas. So many people have given feedback. I myself have worked on this person, but all the improvements seem to be very temporary, and she quickly slides back into her original old habits. So I was wondering what more as a professional coach could I do for this executive to really flourish, because she's a very talented person. So I'm actually at a bit of a tricky situation on this, and this actually chokes my next level of coaching work with others.
Okay.
So that's what I said. Are there factors which are beyond what is visible to us, which would have made them to freeze to this level? And do I, as a coach, do I have to access those deep laying pathos and emotions, etc., etc.? I'm a bit confused. I would be happy to get help. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Raghu. You know, I think the first option that I would consider as a coach is to fully connect to this person, to listen to her, to connect to her. Because obviously she doesn't feel heard by people around you, around her, and you as a coach can really open that space that she feels heard and that she feels listened to. And then explore with her, you know, tell me about what do you feel when people do, you know, say certain things, you know, what makes you react in that way? You know, where do you feel disempowered? Because, I mean, the way people react is always a space of being disempowered. So somewhere, you know, I would focus on claiming her power back, finding her voice, not having to defend yourself, because it sounds to me like the world's not a safe space. What I've also learned through a case study that might also help a situation like this is when someone is in a reactive space all the time, it's a good idea for them to journal on their feelings, on their day. So there was a case study, very, very successful lady in America that she was nearly fired by the board of directors because of the way that she interacted with people. And her coach used journaling as a method to help her to pin her feelings down. And what she did was when she was reactive in a space where she interacted with people, she actually knew and she made the commitment to reflect and to know. She knew that tonight when she gets home, she can write it all out in her journal. She does not have to say everything, because the thing she said was destructive for the relationships. She kept on falling back into that space to protect herself. And she could see her feelings. You know, she could see why she reacted in a certain way, and her coach helped her work through those feelings, which made her a much better communicator. And she was very skilled. You know, people really invested in her development because they didn't want to lose her. But she didn't have that ability, but because she could not see herself in action, and the reflection space helped her. So that's one thing that you could try.
Thank you, Karen. What I'm also keen to know, is there any other background? One is, yes, as a therapy and as an approach, I fully appreciate. It's a very good idea. Thanks a lot. I just want to know, from a academic interest, what could have gone wrong, or what could have gone into such persons for them to develop this attitude? Is there anything worthwhile for me to learn in that?
Well, people that react normally comes from huge amounts of pain. So the defensiveness, the reactiveness comes from, I need to protect myself because I'm experiencing pain. So when someone is, normally a communicator where they dictate or they keep people away from them, it's all to do with the amount of pain that they're experiencing. So you can really have a breakthrough as a coach when you get to that space with her. It's like, I hear you say these things. I get that you're experiencing pain. Tell me more about that. What is that all about? She might just open up to you because something made her like that. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the background that she has, the way, or maybe a previous boss. You don't know. And it's to get her to a space where she could complete the past. There's different processes you could get her to let go, of the situation. You could get her to have a conversation or maybe forgive the person there's beautiful processes about that as well. To take her to that space where she can complete it, because what's interesting about the limbic system, because it stores all the emotional information. Every time that we're in a space where we experience something similar, it uploads an amplified version of the history of our emotional feelings. So it accumulates. So every time she's in a situation where she feels she has to protect herself, it keeps on storing more and more information in the limbic system. And you can just say something small and she might fly off the handle. It means that it uploads all the history of everything that remotely is similar to the situation. I don't know if it makes sense, but sometimes that explains why people can be so reactive, right, over something very small, actually.
Thank you, Karen. It's quite certainly helpful to me. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish you well with your client. Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you very much.
Karen, let's continue on that point for a bit, and I'm going to pick it up from a question that Shanaz asked, or point that Shanaz is raising. Where are you? I lost you. There you are.
Me?
Yeah, got you now.
Okay.
Shanaz, the question that Shanaz is raising, which you just spoke a bit about, what are the signs you might look out for before you recommend a referral for or other medical health interventions might be required? So what signs do you look out for?
Okay.
I suppose we're going to the question of knowing when to refer to a mental health or when it becomes therapy.
So for me, clear indicator is when someone cannot take responsibility. They will say, I will do certain things after the coaching session, and next week or the week when they come back, they haven't delivered on what they said they would. They've got low levels of responsibility, sometimes lack of inspiration, repeatedly going back and back and back into the past. It means there's stuff that's unresolved. And I think coaching is a space to move forward. It's a discovery process. But sometimes therapy is necessary. Sometimes someone has to, go back to the past to go and heal something in order to move forward. So I would really look out for, what is this person's level of commitment and responsibility to their own goals? And then if it's time after time a very low level of responsibility, that's a clear indicator that that person is not able to actually move towards their goals. I would refer in a case like that. And then also, once you've referred someone, it's okay to have a dual process, as long as they share with their psychologist or therapist that they are in a coaching process and that they are seeing a coach as well. So the coach can help them to move towards their goals, where the therapist can help them to heal from trauma or pain from the past so that they can move forward.
one of the coaches raised this question about how can this be used in coaching. Now, that was early on in the conversation, and I don't remember right now who the coach was. But as Karen was talking, are you noticing, oh yeah, there we go, from Catherine, where she said it was a very clear summary and other ways of using this in coaching. And to everyone, have you noticed how many core competencies were showing up, or coaching skills were showing up as Karen was talking? When she spoke about the scenario with, I think it was Raghu, on that client, and spoke about really connecting with them and listening, especially if in their background nobody else listened to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, from what she was saying and even sharing her own story, direct communication, trust and intimacy, coaching presence, active listening. And somebody asked a question on action, reactions, and then moving into actions. Lots of progress and accountability showing up.
Yeah, which is a natural consequence of clear communication in the workplace. People come to the party without effort, you know, when they feel that they don't have to protect themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We still have some time. Anybody want to join the panel? Or there are more questions here. Let's see. Quite a few compliments, which you can read later, Karen.
Thank you.
I'll save the chat for you. Let's see, what am I missing? There was a good one here about, oh yeah, this one from Shankar. Is it possible to quantify cortisol levels in a person? Can you quantify?
I wouldn't know how to answer that.
Yeah, especially if someone is very stressed.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be measured.
Cortisol levels. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder.
I wonder.
Any participant here knows the answer to that? Can that be quantified? I'm also eager to know.
Would be interesting.
It would be lovely.
I know that the neuroscientists, they have a way of wiring people up and then, you know, tracking what's going on in the brain. And even in the YouTube videos from David Eagleman, he shows some examples of how they do that. I'm sure they can measure that. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I know. I've also taken a big interest in that. I'm a neuroscience trained coach. So when you're talking, I think in your third slide about the threat reaction, you know, very similar to the SCARF model with David Rock. Yeah, fight and flight. The towards and away state of the SCARF model. And but I don't know the answer to that question also, whether it can be quantified.
I'm sure if you do research and neuroscientists, they have ways of measuring this. You know, talking a little bit more about the cortisol, you know what really, I think in a way impacted me so much when I came across this research for the first time, is that kids that's in a high stress environment actually cannot learn. You know, so if you are in a stressful situation where your basic needs are not met, or there's violence in the home, or there's high stress in the home, those children, they actually cannot learn so that they can reach their maximum potential. You know, it's not to say that they won't, you know, be successful in life or anything, but it's just like, it's so difficult to navigate situations like that, you know, us with children, we need to make sure that our kids have an environment that would not produce such high stress levels for them, so that they can perform optimally and learn optimally, so that they can find their place in this world.
We have a coach who just joined the panel, Karen, but before we go to the coach, let me ask you this. There's quite a few questions around, quite a few requests for the slides.
Okay.
Can our participants add the slides? Are you okay with sharing that?
I'm okay with sharing. It's just what I'm not okay with is that my brand and the branding is used elsewhere, but the information by all means, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
of
would
course,
put
understandable.
it in a, do you know what I can do? I will put it in a slideshow that they can have all the information, but it would be in a non-editable version, so that I can do with pleasure.
Karen, we lost you.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Did you lose me? Can you hear me now?
Okay, so yeah, now you're okay.
Okay, all right.
So you were saying that you would give it in a PDF format?
Yes,
Yep.
I will send it. I will send it to you in a PDF format, and then you can, by all means, with so much love and passion, share it. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Coaches, I know there are a few questions I have not taken as yet, but let's hear around and I'll try to summarize some of the questions that you have there. Go ahead, Ram.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Hello, Ram.
Thank you. My question is a bit about if you look from the perspective of social nervous system and how, you know, our interactions, there's always this nervous system co-regulation going on. You know, I've heard it said that in a way, in a partnership, you know, the other acts as an auxiliary frontal lobe. And actually the nervous systems become one unit. So you've talked a lot about, you know, from the perspective of conversational intelligence, how to verbalize things, but I wonder if you could, it's kind of a general question, talk a bit about how the brain in conversation co-regulates more through nonverbal cues. And you know, obviously there are things like facial expressions and tone of voice, but there are even subtler levels of just, you feel okay in someone's energy. So what do you know about that from a neurological perspective?
Okay, so thank you for your question, Ram. So there's bioreactions that take place within 10 feet from another human being. That's more than 3 meters. You can already pick up friend, foe, is this safe, is this not safe? So there's communication without words. You know, so in your energy, what you bring to the party actually weighs much more than the verbal conversation, because if you think about words, I think they say it consists about 7% of all communication exists in words. The rest is all nonverbal. Body language, tone of voice, the way you actually in energy, what you bring in energy. So it doesn't matter what you say. You can say the nicest things, but if you internally hold judgment or exclusion, people will pick it up. You know, that intelligence is always present. So bioreactions is the first thing that will start happening. It would be, okay, so this interaction, it's actually 0.07 seconds where this bioreaction, that the whole trail starts, you know, the whole thing starts happening. So in that short amount of time, immediately your brain would inform you, is this safe? Is this friend or foe? Then from that space, it will go into your thoughts. It's like, okay, so why am I feeling like this? We'll go into the limbic system. Why am I feeling like this? Where emotions get present. And then you start making up, you know, assumptions because you don't really know what's going on. And then you might even end up in a conclusion, okay, so this relationship is not for me, or this conversation is not going to validate me as a person, and I don't want to be part of that. Now, all of that happens so fast. So you're very right in saying that communication is not just verbal, everything. You know, you as a coach also, if you look at the way your clients interact with you, remember, when you meet a new client for the first time, that whole process starts with them too. You know, do you know what you're doing? Is it a safe space for me? And then they will go up with all those different things that will be present for them. So it's, to establish a good rapport, it's really the best space to come from is to listen, to connect to the human being first. you know, before you get task orientated, or before you get, you know, like into spaces where they need to commit to things. First, get to build that solid foundation of a good relationship. I hope I clarified that for you.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's a conversation that could go on and on.
I'm sure. Yes, thank you.
How the rapport is established, how the nervous systems really go into a deeper co-resonance, so that subtler cues or subtler shifts in the coach's way of being themselves will offer possibilities to the nervous system of the client. To me, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, the other thing that we don't realize is that by our level of being, we can shift our clients.
Yes.
You know, that when you talk to you,
Karen, your audio dropped. I don't know if you can hear me.
Cindy, we seem to have lost your audio as well.
That.
thank you.
And just keep it so focused. So thank you, Karen, for being our speaker today and triggering off thought-provoking discussions with us.
Thank you. I
just want to say this and then hand over to you. We had quite a bit of chat and questions around the chat that we could have expanded more on. So I think you and I can engage in a conversation on perhaps writing a blog post, answering some of those questions, and we'll, of course, put it up on our website and give full credit to you. But we'll engage in that conversation afterwards.
That's brilliant. No, we'll do that. Absolutely. So I want to say thank you to everyone that spent the time. I really would love to ask you to just put in the chat box, what was your greatest learning? What are you walking away with? So for me, it was such an honor and a privilege to connect to so many people that really makes a difference and that care about people that much to do the work that we do. So I wish you well in all your coaching engagements and in your own life, success and abundance. The world's your oyster. Go get it.
And coaches, many of you put up some really good resources. A great book there by Jackie. So thank you for, sharing your resources. And it's lovely. Thank you for your engagement here.
Lovely. I'd love to.
Just click on more to all the participants. Click on more, and you can save chat.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see that. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I'm really inspired about what we did tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Big hug. Good night.
Good night.